welcome to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 250, and today's date is December 28th, 2013. And the title of this episode is The Current Economic Collapse News Brief for this Saturday. Before I start, I just want to remind everyone that the interview with Dave Hodges will be up on the x22report.com site on Sunday. It will be up there around lunchtime, which is Eastern Standard Time, and later in the day I will upload it to YouTube, and you can go and listen to it on YouTube. If you want to hear it first, before it gets to YouTube, you can come over to the x22report.com site. Let's get into the economic collapse news, and the oldest bank in Italy is having a problem. They need some cash. They had a bailout of around 4.1 billion in euros, and now they need some more money, and they are looking for around 3 billion in euros right now. They need some help. So if you have any money, throw it over to them, and we can save the bank out there. And of course, the mayor, Valentini, who the city council is the top stakeholder in the bank, says we cannot let the third biggest bank in this country fall prey to foreign interest. He said the Monte dei Paschi is not just an issue in Siena, it is a big national issue, and they need the money, or the bank probably will start doing some bail-ins at this point. And we can see that most of the banks are having the same problems, because what's happening is every country is saying, you know what, there's just no more bailouts. We are done with this. The U.S. said it. UK said it. The Eurozone is saying it right now, and this is why the country's not bailing them out. This is why they're looking for the 3 billion euros to help out. Australia said it, Canada's saying it, and this is why they created all these documents that explain the blueprint of how to do a bail-in. And of course, Cyprus was the template. They saw how that worked. It worked pretty well. There were no riots. No one did anything, and they think they're just going to go and do this again throughout Europe, the US, UK, Australia, Canada, and this is what they are planning on doing. And I wouldn't be surprised if they take the next step and do some bail-ins if no outside interest comes in and gives them the 3 billion euros that they're looking for. Now, there is a report that the U.S. is starting an economic fight with China right now. The United States is reportedly seeking a new agreement with European Union and Pacific Rim countries in order to stop China's growing economic power. And we have to remember that China said they don't see the benefit of taking on more U.S. debt or holding U.S. dollars. Russia has already said that the U.S. dollar is going to collapse, and they don't want their people inside the country taking on more U.S. dollars. And both Russia, China, and other nations are actually starting to sell their treasury bonds. And right now, the deal was planned because Washington is worried the U.S. could lose influence to China. Congress and the White House are pushing broad trade deals that risk triggering an economic fight with China. And China is coming out and saying, well, that these agreements will be an act by the U.S. to try to force changes in China's domestic laws. And we can see what is happening right now. The yuan and what China is doing all around the world is a huge threat to the private Western central banks. And we can see that China has been making deals with England, has made deals with Africa, has made deals with Russia, with Iran, with Syria, is talking to the Saudis, is making deals with Egypt and Australia and Brazil, many other nations, and they are making deals all over the place, pumping money into different countries like Afghanistan, into Central Africa, into Sudan, and building their infrastructure and helping them mine and build their natural resource infrastructure. So eventually, when the yuan takes control and is the reserve currency, they will be doing exactly what the United States did in the beginning and right after World War II, where they became the world reserve currency. And we can see that this is all unfolding right now, and the U.S., of course, is very worried about this. And we have to remember, this is why the Fed is buying all these treasury bonds every month, which was 85 billion total, and because most of the countries are not purchasing, and for the government to borrow money, they issue treasury bonds, and countries have to purchase these, but no one is, and most of the countries are starting to sell them, and the Fed is sitting there buying these treasury bonds. And let me just say that the Fed is going to have to increase QE because as more and more countries see that the U.S. is in trouble, they're going to start unloading their treasury bonds. And the Fed is then going to have to keep purchasing as these countries unload them because they are pretty much the only ones that are purchasing at this time. Now, the LAPD is deploying drug detection swab tests at different checkpoints right now, and what they're doing is they're taking some DNA from you, putting it into the DNA database, and right now the driver, it is voluntary right now, and we've seen this in many, many different states. They're receiving grants and money to do this because what they're really trying to do is create a DNA database. We saw this happen in Texas. We're seeing it in LA right now, and we will see this start to spread all across the country because we have to remember what they are doing. DHS is giving local law enforcement grants, and what they're trying to do is create a massive DNA database system so they can identify every single person. And this goes along with NSA, with the fusion centers, where they're spying on everyone, creating social profiles, facial recognition, and then they'll just link to the DNA to confirm all this information. Okay, now Uzbekistan has become the 9th country to join the CIS free trade zone between former Soviet states, and Uzbekistan has become the 9th member to join the treaty, which was signed by Russia, Ukraine now, Belarus, Kazakhstan, Armenia, Kyrgyzstan, Moldova, and Tajikistan. And all these states right now are all linked up right now where they have free trade zone area was designed to reduce all trade fees on a number of goods between participating countries. And of course, we can see what's happening right now. Russia is now moving their economic engine forward, the same as China. And of course, the EU, the private Western central bankers, do not like this because they are not part of the central banking system, the Western central banking system. Now, of course, the EU is voicing concern over corruption scandal in Turkey, and the United States and the EU are very concerned of what's going on right now. The European Union has voiced concern over a growing corruption scandal targeting the administration of Turkish Prime Minister Erdogan, and the EU official called on the Turkish government to take all necessary measures to ensure the allegations of wrongdoing are addressed without discrimination or preference in a transparent and impartial manner. The people are rising up and they are very worried. They want Erdogan to resign. And again, you have to remember, Turkey is a strategic location. The U.S., the Eurozone give them aid, and we can see that Turkey was going to purchase Chinese missile system, and then the United States put pressure on Turkey and said no, this would not be compatible. But of course, as we all know, they put other pressure on them, and they turned away from that missile system and turn towards the NATO missile systems. And we can see what's happening right now. The people are tired, and we're seeing this in many of the Middle East countries where they're starting to rise up, and we could see some type of revolution or something going on in Turkey. And if this happens, the Eurozone, the United States, could lose Turkey as a strategic location, just like Egypt and just like Saudi Arabia is angry with the United States. And we can see the United States in the Middle East is trying to maintain control, of course, by using drones, strikes on the people who are trying to push the Western central bankers out, which is the United States. And we can see that the empire of the United States is starting to lose control in all of these areas, and they are moving into other areas like Central Africa. They're moving into the Sudan. They're moving into Somalia. They're moving into Kenya. Why? Because China is making their move. The United States is still trying to keep the troops in Afghanistan. Of course, we all know that they have the poppy fields, which produces opium that pays for all the covert missions and the illegal missions that the U.S. government does not want anyone to know about. Also, Afghanistan has the third largest copper mine. China is already there, pumping in billions of dollars into the infrastructure to help mine this copper. And they do have other natural resources there. And also, Afghanistan is also a strategic location between Iran and Russia states. Now, we know U.S. is moving more weapons to Okinawa. Right now, the United States is moving the entire base, and they will be importing more sophisticated weapons once the new base is built. They are shifting some of the soldiers over to Guam. Guam, we know they're building a missile base there, and right now, we can see what is happening. They are preparing and prepping for World War III. They're building a new modern base. They're moving in even more weapons, and this is all in preparation for World War III. Now, the FBI is investigating a military-style raid on California power station. U.S. officials warn about attacks on electrical power facilities these days. The first thing that comes to all of our minds is it was a cyber attack, which is going to shut down the power grid by using some type of malware virus being placed into the system. But a more traditional attack on a power station in California has U.S. officials puzzled and worried about the physical security of the electrical grid from attackers who come in with guns blazing. Initially, the attack was being treated as vandalism and handled by local law enforcement, the senior intelligence official said. However, investigators have been quoted in the press expressing opinions that there are indications that the timing of the attacks and target selection indicate a higher level of planning and sophistication. The FBI has taken over the case right now. These were not amateurs taking potshots, Mark Johnson, a former vice president for transmission operations at PG&E. He said this last month at a conference on grid security held in Philadelphia. His personal opinion and his personal view is that this was a dress rehearsal for future attacks on the infrastructure. Now, we've heard this before in different areas. We've heard there was a memo going around that there were dry runs on airplanes. Then we heard that airplanes can easily be cyber attacked and taken over. Now we're seeing the power grid. They were talking about cyber attacks, but now we're seeing that this could have been a dress rehearsal for some type of future attack. And this goes on to say that the attack points to an arguably overlooked physical threat to power facilities at a time when much of the U.S. intelligence community, Congress, and the electrical power industry is focused on the risk of cyber attacks. And we can see that I remember reporting on this going back it was like a month or 2 months ago, that there was some type of an attack and they thought it was vandalism, and now the FBI is looking into it because they believe it was some type of dry run, and we all know who probably and most likely did the dry run. It was probably the FBI, and that's why they needed to take over, and they were probably getting the lay of the land, and this is probably going on in many different areas, and it makes it easier for them to do the actual attack when the time comes. And this goes on to say there are ways that a very few number of actors with very rudimentary equipment could take down large portions of our grid. I don't think we have the level of physical security we need in each of our power grid locations. And I can see how this is all starting to come together right now. Of course, Janet Napolitano said that, in the future there is going to be some type of cyber attack, not if, but when. It could be a natural attack, but there will be some type of attack on the infrastructure. And we can see if the cyber attack doesn't work, or if it does work, could be used with some type of physical attack to make sure the power grid does come down. And this is all being set up right now for what is coming, because we have to remember the U.S. economy, the European economy, is teetering right now on collapse. So they need some type of an event to blame this on one of those countries that are no longer, or have never been, controlled by the Western central bankers. And they need this to happen very soon, because the Fed has already said they're going to taper, which they have not done yet. They're going to start this in January. We understand that the debt ceiling debate comes up in March, and they have a small window right now. And again, the Fed is number based, and they're basing all their market manipulations on unemployment and how the stock market's doing, on inflation, on GDP. And we have to remember they've manipulated all of these numbers. So none of these numbers are true. They have been changed, they've been manipulated, and they are using them to create the illusion that everything is recovering. And we know better that everything is not recovering. And they've said that they are going to start the tapering, which they might even start it, but we will definitely see some type of an event occur where they need to say, whoa, 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 we need to stop tapering at this point, because what happened here just collapsed the economy. And this will be blamed on North Korea, Iran, Syria, Russia, China, whatever country you would like. And of course, this event will bring down the power grid. Lights will go out. It could be a dirty nuclear weapon. It could be a chemical weapon, because we have to remember CNN reported that Assad has a cache of hidden chemical weapons, and the UN has no knowledge of this right now. Now, just was it yesterday on CNN, they had a report saying Al-Qaeda hints at a new terror attack in 2014. I have the link on this report that I'm doing right now, which is episode 250, and there is a video on this, and they're saying that they have intercepted messages. And before I start here, we have to remember that all this Al-Qaeda and all these terrorists being pushed and flooded into the country are all backed by the U.S. and all created by the CIA, FBI, and they are the ones that are manipulating what is coming. And they could be getting help from Israel and from other countries. But what this goes on to say is that there are newly intercepted messages from senior Al-Qaeda operatives, and there are concerns that terrorist attacks in the Middle East and here in the U.S. in 2014 could increase. And this is Barbara Starr from CNN is reporting this, saying that new attacks, active plotting in Yemen against U.S. and overseas controlled U.S. Areas are in target to new terrorist attacks. U.S. officials very nervous about attacks in the U.S. Using commercial planes. Al-Qaeda has moved into Syria and getting stronger and more dangerous. These terrorists are well trained and ready to strike out across and into the U.S. So they've mentioned commercial planes. They mentioned Syria. They are feeding and laying the breadcrumbs out here to make everyone believe that this is coming from overseas, that they're in the United States right now. They are controlled by Syria. They could be using airplanes. They could be hitting the power grid. They are planning new types of attacks. They are actively plotting at this time. This is all in preparation for the next event that we are going to see. What exactly it will be, I do not know, but we can make some conclusions on what they have been saying and everything that we see around us. And we can see that something in regards to definitely a power grid type of attack is definitely coming. We can see that some type of chemical type of attack will probably most likely happen here, and or it could be some type of natural event that could occur. I mean, we've been having the earthquake drill saying that there's going to be some type of major earthquake happening soon. They could set off a small nuke to trigger it and say it was an earthquake. And there are so many different things, but the main thing that we need to take away from this is that we need to be ready and prepared, because if the lights go out and certain areas are put into darkness, you want to make sure that you have food, that you have cash, that you have extra medicine, that you have water. You want to make sure that you can protect your family. You want to make sure that you can survive. And this is why I'm doing this, and this is why we are all in this together, saying we need to be ready and to call out the government at a moment's notice to say this was not real, this was completely planned, but we are ready and prepared, because when they implement martial law, you want to be ready to defend yourself against what is coming. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.